Hi, Tim Carthen here, and in this video I'm going to be speaking to you about taxes, why they're important, and why in this country they need to be raised. Understand that taxes are simply the income for the federal government. Now what the federal government does with those taxes is they actually run the country. One of the things in running the country that they do is profit share with the states. So they give them some of the actual tax money. So if the federal government makes $100 million in taxes, just for example, these aren't the actual numbers, $100 billion in taxes. Let's say that they give half of that to the states. Well, that means each state would get $1 billion. 50 states, $1 billion each. Now, let's say the federal government makes $300 billion. Well, guess what? They give them half, it's $150 billion. That means each state gets $3 billion. So the more tax revenue, the more money goes to the states, the more the states can do as far as paying and having more firefighters, police officers, teachers, better resources for schools, roads and bridges getting built so that they don't run down before we actually get to them. So taxes are an extraordinarily important part of the country. But what happens is you have individuals who get so much individual money from tax cuts that they love to cut taxes because it allows them to get more money. But what happens is when you cut taxes, it's like cutting the federal government's income. So to put it in its simplest format, the federal government says, let's say the federal government rather has $75,000 in debt, things that they have to pay. Okay, now again, these are low numbers, but I'm just using this for example purposes. Now let's say they have $100,000 in tax revenue. Okay, well they're $25,000 over. It's in the plus, so everything's fine. But what happens when you get these selfish people and corporations that come in and say, you know what, I really want taxes to be cut. Yeah, that way, taxes being cut, I make more money, my company gets more money. Well, that's fine until we realize that cutting those taxes means that that $100,000 the government got drops. Now what happens when they cut the taxes to the point to where the amount of money that the government was bringing in is now less than the $75,000 that it cost bill-wise for the government? Guess what? They have to do the same thing that you do when you run out of money. You have to go to a payday loan. You have to go borrow some money from someone. So now instead of making $100,000, the federal government's only making $60,000. Well, guess what? Our bills are $75,000. Well, then these same people who had their taxes cut say, well, all you got to do is cut fat. All you got to do is get rid of programs and get rid of debt or get rid of bills. But you don't understand that those bills are firefighters, police officers, teachers, that whole nine. So we start cutting that, then we run into another problem. We start losing the battle of being the top education company in the world, that whole nine. We're not, but part of that reason is because of how we resource and teach in our schools. So we start losing all of these different battles, but we still have to fund that amount that we have over the $60,000, even if it's only $10,000, even if we cut $5,000 off the debt and it makes it $70,000. But if we're only bringing in $60,000 because we cut taxes $40,000, then guess what? We still have to go borrow that $10,000. But now that we're borrowing it, like any loan, guess what? You have debt that gets added to it from interest. So instead of us having $100,000 and only paying out $75,000 and having a surplus, so there is no interest, now we have $60,000, cut the debt by $5,000, cut how much we spend rather the budget, but we still have to borrow that $10,000 to reach $70,000. So now we have debt on the $10,000, we have interest on the $10,000. So it just keeps going up. Next thing you know, we owe $80,000, $85,000. Why? Because we're not bringing in enough revenue. It's just like a home in that sense. If you don't bring in enough revenue, you have to borrow from somebody or you have to cut services. Now, whose services get cut normally? It's middle class and poor people. They're the services who normally get cut, who really need them. The rich people can pay for whatever they need to pay for. So it's extraordinarily selfish of people who make more money off of taxes to try to have taxes cut, when the people who get damaged the most by those tax cuts are the people who have the least resources. So that's why taxes are important, and that's why they need to be raised in this country. They need to be raised so that we stop borrowing so much money, which makes less debt. Less debt makes the value of the dollar higher. The value of the dollar being higher means that your dollar goes farther. Your dollar going farther means that you can buy more things. Buying more things makes companies have to hire people. Companies hiring people means that more people have more money to spend, and the economy starts spinning in the other direction much faster. Simple. That's why taxes are important and need to be raised in this country.